What's up guys, Manny from Motomillion. It's purple wheel time. What are we doing today? So today we're going to start installing our wheels. What does that mean? We're probably going to address our rotors, our brakes, and some other parts around it. In the case of the front, it's going to be our Fullsix carbon fiber front fender. While we're there, it's going to make it a lot easier because things are more accessible. And obviously, when we're putting our T-drive rotors by Brembo, we're going to use our ProTi titanium bolts in the front. We'll also utilize some of the ProTi bolts in the back too. Less talking, more working. I'm excited. I really want to see these wheels on these bikes. Let me just get to it. So I don't know if you guys saw, we just weighed these. This weighs 0.88 pounds. This weighs just half a pound, 0.56 pounds. Yes, it's plastic, but also probably has the reflectors that adds weight, but not all the carbon fiber is created equally, guys. I know that there is some carbon products that are out there that I actually ordered some of the stuff in from other brands. It's pretty questionable. I don't even think we may be using it in this build because we really care about the quality of the items that we put on. And hey, you know what? Maybe one day we'll make you a video showing you guys the process of how Fullsix carbon is made. And that's when you guys will know what's so special about some of this stuff. And obviously, yes, this is lighter. I bet you if I grabbed another brand names, some of the other brand names, not even just one, it probably was just as heavy or heavier than this piece over here. But let me get this on the bike. We're kind of going to do the reflector delete too. This still has the holes for the reflectors just in case you're in a country where these things are mandatory. But in our case, we're going to leave the reflectors off. We're going to get this carbon fiber fender back on the bike. I would have loved to get the sticker and put it on this front fender. Unfortunately, when you try to take it off, it creases it and it actually stretches it. Maybe we'll just order this and we'll get it on the bike afterwards. But this is going on, and then the front wheel. So the front fender is on, and since I mentioned about quality and differences between carbon fibers that are out there or carbon fiber parts and manufacturers out there, it really helps to have a really good quality carbon fiber piece because carbon is not supposed to be super thick if it's made correctly, and that helps you, number one, install this part into its place. So when it goes through the forklifts, you have to actually bend it a little bit. I know carbon doesn't bend as much as plastic and you wouldn't be really careful with it. But if you're making the parts in an autoclave and in processes that is supposed to be done and you're not putting thick layers of carbon fiber, or in some cases, some companies put fiberglass in between, which even makes it heavier and thicker and less pliable, let's say, so that it makes it easier to put it on. So in this case, I don't know if you guys saw it on camera or not, but you could actually bend this piece around quite a little bit, you see? And that really helps with the installation. And why is that possible? Because there's not a ton of layers of carbon fiber to get this to be in its shape, or also for this piece to be formed and stay within that shape as well. So it looks cool. This is the satin finish. It's also available in gloss carbon. I love it. I think it'll be great if you actually put that B Eraser sticker back on there. But let me start getting that front wheel ready and let's put it in place, because right now it looks even better than just the plastic with the carbon. We'll wait till it has purple wheels. So continuing on with this beautiful rotor that's here, this is the stock rotor, and the difference is, so these stock rotors are what we call a semi-floating rotor. So if I shake it, it doesn't really move around as freely as that one. This doesn't move around at all. But if I try to force it with my hand, it does move a little bit because it's a semi-floating rotor. They've moved because when the brakes get hot, this part expands, and this center part is aluminum. This is steel. It saves weight, but you want to make sure when you're using aluminum and steel at the same part, the expansion rate is different. So you want to allow it to have that room to expand. And some people actually will take these and turn them into fully floating rotors by changing the bobbins. I mean, it's not just about the floating technology, right? If you take a look at the rotor discs, I could clearly see with the naked eye that the T-drive rotor is thicker and this is thinner. This has some grooves on the top. I guess this aids with a little bit of cooling, but why is a thicker rotor better? So your rotor surface over here is meant, number one, obviously your pads makes friction on it to hold and stop the bike, but this is also where the thermal capacity of a rotor comes from. What is thermal capacity? It's the capacity of this outer ring to hold as much heat as possible. And that also affects with efficient cooling, not allowing that thermal friction that happens when you brake with the bike to transfer to the other parts of the bike through the pads, to your brake fluid, to your calipers. And that's why the thermal capacity of a rotor is very important, because if you do some spirited canyon riding or track days, you don't want your brake fluid to boil, or you don't want your pads to get too hot because they go out of range of their working temperatures. But I guess in a nutshell, this is why these T-drive rotors are so much better. And then you could also apply this with other lines of rotors that Brembo has. I think these are called the Series Oro, which is the OEM spec rotors. Then between the OEM spec and the T-drive, there's also the Brembo Super Sport rotors. They are not T-drive, they have floating bobbins on it. They have a very similar rotor surface as this one, so it has more thermal capacity over the stock ones. But the only other difference is that they are gold, and mainly we don't use the Super Sports because the gold color doesn't always match everything. But also with builds like this, we want to use the top of the line products as possible, and that's why we have this. And I know some of your viewers are going to say, what about the Pista Bassa rotors? Those are track spec rotors. I think it would be very overkill on the street bike that this will become, most likely. I don't know if someone will track it. If you do, go ahead, you know, there's nothing holding you back from making this a full-on track bike. But one last thing before I let you go, the steel material is different from this rotor to the stock rotors or any other rotor that's available. And we see a difference when we install these rotors on any bike that we do immediately. It's not just me. Every rider who has got some miles under their belt, let's say, realizes that the brake grab, so the bite point of the pad, even if the pad is the same, changes. Again, it's the friction characteristics of this rotor. It gives you a much firmer and much more immediate initial bite that gives you that confidence that you want from your brakes. But I think that's it. Let's get this on. Let's get that wheel on the bike. Before I install this second rotor on our bike, I forgot to mention this to you guys. So this little QR code here, we get questions on what it is. And if you receive a Brembo product that has been recently released in the past 1 or 2 years, or recently made in the past 1 or 2 years, you'll see that this QR code is present. Brembo used to send authenticity cards for a while. Then they got counterfeited. And then Brembo started sending different authenticity cards with some different codes on it that you go on their website to check it. Then they start making a counterfeit of those. And now the way to authenticate your Brembo product is by this QR code. So if you see it, don't forget to remove it off your product, because I don't think it should be there, left there. But also, if you're wondering about what you received is authentic, just check that QR code, guys. Now it's time to install this front wheel on this beautiful Speed White RSV4 to take a look to see how this purple is going to look on that beautiful motorcycle. Well, here it is. At least one of the wheels are on. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and that Fullsix carbon fiber front fender, it really adds that detail that we're looking for. And speaking of the details, you guys probably realize that we haven't added other titanium bolts in the rotor bolts. We're going to leave that for another time where we actually go over all the details of the bike, because we still are not sure if we're doing anything with the brakes yet in terms of the calipers. And that's when we'll decide, do we get other bolts or do we just run the stock spec ProTi caliper bolts on there? And also we do have the fender bolts as well, but we're not sure of the color, so we'll leave it to another episode. But judging by just the front wheel on, I really like it. Why? Because yes, the bike has purple, but it's so minimal where we have the purple. It's just this line over here. I don't know if it has it at the back at all. It actually doesn't. And there's a line over here, but I think it really ties this purple really well with the wheels. I think it's the purple that was missing. And look, there's actually purple here too now that I take a look at it. But unfortunately, we're going to leave the rear wheel for another episode, because we still got to do a 520 sprocket conversion kit, the ultralight rear rotor, our TWM chain adjusters, and not on this episode because it's not ready yet, but we're actually developing an underslung rear caliper setup for this RSV4 for for all the 2021 and above RSV4s, I believe, because that's when the swing arm change happened and they did not do an underslung caliper for the first time on an RSV4. So that's going to be later on, but we'll definitely be able to install the rear wheel and pull this beautiful bike out onto the Miami sun so that we can get a good view of this bike with its purple wheels. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.